What Andor did with his last three episodes wasn't just great Star Wars. It wasn't just a great conclusion to the show itself, but it was also one of the best episodes television ever produced. And I feel like I'm saying this more each week after week, but because it's becoming more evident after week by week. And what this show does so well is to have this conclusion that wraps up the show so satisfyingly well, but also leads seamlessly into Rogue One without making it feel like setup, without making it feel like exposition to get to there. It feels like a natural bridge that both concludes the audience's investment in these characters, but also leads the road into the movie we saw 8 to 10 years ago. And it's just so beautiful the way they ended the show. And today, we're going to go through the last three episodes of Andor. Obviously, there's going to be a spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the last three episodes of Andor, go watch that now and come back to this video later. And we're going to first start with episode 10, Make It Stop. My predictions actually were right about this, that Lonnie is the loose end that leads to Luthen, and we start off a tense scene, not in the lower levels, of course, just on the plaza, as Luthen, talks to Lonnie, and the Death Star plan gets unfolded. I really like how this arc made that the core focus. It's just good to, put the stakes up, but also set up for Rogue One, and the fact that they're trying to, contain the Death Star leak, or the rebels are trying to, convey that information. It's just, done so well. Like in this season, we're gonna see the Death Star plans get released, and then in Rogue One, we see the Death Star plans get sent to Leia and or get the Death Star plans, and then obviously Luke Skywalker destroys it in New Hope. It's just like a seamless bridge throughout, and yeah, I appreciate that. What Lonnie says to Luthen, the intensity of each scene after scene is just incredible, and both actors really did a great job bouncing off of each other, and this entire episode just has this sense of finality to it. Luthen knows what's going to happen. He knew it from the start. He even mentioned it in the last arc where eventually they'll hang us both, and Luthen and Andor both eventually dies. Once again, great foreshadowing. And the way that it builds, this episode makes it feel very bittersweet. Luthen knows the path he's going to take. He gives Claire the information now. He comes back to Gallery to burn everything, and Dedra is the one that is chasing after that goal. Dedra is the one that needs this for her goals, but Luthen just simply knows that he won. The rebellion is now out. His job is done, and he kills himself, and it's not done in some dramatic, grandiose fashion, because we don't need that. It just feels very bittersweet. It feels very melancholic the way Luthen dies, and it was just done exceptionally well. And Stellan Skarsgård's line to Denise Goff with "There's an entire galaxy waiting out there to discuss you" is such a brilliant line, and it shows you that the rebellion has grown, and through these time jumps we see this a lot, and by the time we get to here, Luthen knows his role is done, and yeah, that scene was done exceptionally. And Clea was the main focus of this arc, and Clea is just Elizabeth Delo is just incredible. I always thought her and Willman are the ones who really received the extra upgrades in this season. They really deserved it because both actors really put in all of their skills, and they're relatively new actors too, and so it was just impressive to watch week after week, and to see Clea get this much focus is just awesome. The flashbacks that play with Clea and Luthen are well shot. I like the cinematography that goes with that, and you can really see their relationship build with that. And I also like how they don't reveal too much about Luthen. We just reveal enough of him that he was a sergeant. He partook in actions that he was very ashamed of, and then him meeting Clea is what kickstarted essentially the entire rebellion, because Luthen was one of the founders of that. And the way it was shot, the way they brought this intimate relationship, it was just all well done. And there are a lot of great scenes in there, like the Empire executing those people, and that boy locking eyes at Clea is just well written. It shows you the brutality of Empire that Andor always does so well, and yeah, it was just a very impactful scene. Um, and it all leads down to the hospital where Clea has to kill Luthen, and it's just this emotional scene. It's the daughter and father dynamic, the kind of family relationship Star Wars do so well, and it was just emotional watching Clea essentially cut off, or not essentially, just cut off the last remnants of Luthen's life, and it was just really emotional in a sad way to end the episode. And then we move on to episode 11. Who else knows? This episode, I think, similar to how like episode 9 was kind of like that escape, like espionage, like Bourne type feel. This is more of this. It was more on the Empire side, where it's this political espionage where they're trying to stop this leak from the Death Star happening. And it starts with Krennic's scene as he's interrogating Dedra. Ben Mendelsohn puts in an absolutely wonderful performance here, and I think this is one of the most underrated scenes because I haven't seen this discussed as much online, but the way he makes Krennic feels intimidating is it's just done so well, and you can really see that he's the one at the top and Dedra's the one at the bottom, and he really establishes that with Krennic we see some goofy natures, like comedic aspects of him, like how he chooses to wear a cape, how he wants like glory. But like in this scene, Ben Mendelsohn really nails it in because this guy is at the top of the Empire pyramid, and that's for a reason. And this scene was just incredible. And you can just see how tense everything is for these ISB agents like Hart and Partagaz because they know they're gonna die if this fails, and they do indeed. And yeah, all this political espionage is building. We also, this is the first episode we see K2. A lot of people wanted K2 earlier, but although I really enjoyed his comedic presence here and his relationship with Cassian here, I don't think K2 would have really fit in well with the tone of the earlier episodes. Plus, obviously for budget reasons and stuff, I think Tony Gilroy made the right decision to save K2 for later. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy him this episode because he was absolutely fantastic. I'm just like with these episodes, just confirmed to me that K2 probably wouldn't have worked so well in the earlier episodes. And yeah, and Andor killed K2 and Melshi, obviously leading to Rogue One. Their dynamic is done well, and them just disobeying order after order is actually very humorous, and that's kind of what happens in Rogue One too. So once again, setup, and yeah. And then we see the ISB close in on Clea, all of them arrive, and in episode 12, Jedha, Kyber, and Urso, this big battle happens, and it's intense. These troops actually know what they're doing, unlike some of the Primor people that we saw in the very first arc of Andor. And I am pretty confident that Cassian and Melshi would have died if K2 didn't step up. And in this scene, you can just see that K2 is an absolute powerhouse, and the way he used her as a body shield is something I didn't expect, but yeah, it shows you the power scale, and yeah, they rescue Clea, and I really like this dynamic. I actually we saw Luthen's role diminish, and we can really see the rebellion taking place, and Luthen's kind of left in the past in Coruscant, in the gallery, but I didn't know there were this much tensions between Luthen and the other rebels, and with the scene with Clea in the safe house, and with the scene in with the council where we see the members of the Rogue One council is at, you can really see the tensions between these two faction groups, and it's done in an interesting way. And what Diego Luna says is that you have all put a fraction of the sacrifice that Luthen did, and whether you believe this or not, whether you approve of him or not, Luthen is the man who gave his life for this rebellion, who gave this life for this information, and it's just this powerful speech done by Diego Luna, and it's an interesting dynamic, and it also brings home that Luthen is, the MVP. He is the one who started all of this, and it's done in an emotional fashion. And then now we wrap up some loose ends. We see Vel and Mon talking about this. We see Clea in the infirmary. And I'm surprised a lot of these characters survived because I did not expect Willman to survive this long, but he did. But I'm so glad he has a happy life with Drina. And Partagas's death. Partagas's death was really impactful because he knew what was gonna happen next, and the way he chose this death, because he would have been sent to a labor camp or wherever else if he was falling with the Empire, and his final listening with the Nemec's manifesto, and maybe his contempt that all of his life's work was meaningless, and that was acted brilliantly here. And that final shot with the stormtroopers flinching, it was just a brutal scene and very well directed and written and executed scene. And yeah. And then we move on to the final montage. And when the music hits here, it hits. Andor's music always hits when it needs to be. Brandon Roberts, I did have some doubts about him because in the earlier episodes, his work wasn't as strong as Nicholas Bertel. When he came back for a second arc, you can clearly see a difference here. But Roberts really steps it up in the last arc. He really steps up in this arc, especially with this final montage as Cassian is going to meet his death, as he's approaching Rogue One, as he's going on his final mission to the Ring of Kafrene. And the music that plays is just beautiful. And this is essentially just a guy walking across the camp to get to a ship, and some other characters looking at him. And there's no dialogue here, but the way the scene builds, the way you feel all these emotions, it's because of the quality of investment we had with these characters. Tony Gilroy took the time throughout season 1 and season 2 to really dig deep into each character, like what are their fears, what are their goals, what do they want, and what is their meaning with the rebellion or the empire. And all this was built up, so by the time we get to this conclusion, you feel all those emotions crashing onto you. You feel the dread because this is Cassian's final days. And then you feel the relief when you see people like Wilman and Drina, and all these characters interlock, and it's just this well-made ending scene that is one of the greatest ending scenes I think I have seen in a long time. We see Vel and Mon, their sisterhood together, and then we see Clea coming out of the infirmary, seeing all these troops arrive, and you can see in her eyes, Elizabeth Dulo acts it perfectly, where she knows that Luthens' dream, Luthens' goal of putting this rebellion has been fulfilled. Maybe it's not at the finish line yet, but you can see the look of melancholy and the look of just sadness and also happiness for what happened as these troops walk by. And then we also see the Force healer. We set her up in episode 7 and her look to Cassian. Cassian's nod to her. The Force healer knows what's going to happen with Cassian. Cassian knows whatever this is, he signed up for it. He is in this rebellion. And that look that they have is just beautiful. And it's just heartbreaking for us knowing what's going to happen. And yeah, normally when you watch prequel stories, you're always like, okay, we know this character's going to survive, we know what's going to happen to this character. But what Andor does so well is to not, it does fall into some of these traps, but what they do incredibly is that it enhances the watching, because we know what's going to happen next, but we feel dread as we approach it, and that's what that final look also did well. And then, we also see the dream with the sister, and I really like that the show never touched on that. It's just a little bit of mystery at the end. We see Perrin, he looks unhappy with his life, and he probably misses Mon, and yeah. And then finally, yeah, we also see Dedra and how she's now on that Narkina prison. It is like that final, yes, for like the viewer, where she met her end and she's going to be wearing that Imperial logo for the rest of her life. And then we also see Saw Gerrera as he sees a ship arrive on Jeddah. And we end the montage with Cassian leaving Yavin for the Ring of Kafrene on his ship. And it's this final blast off for him into Rogue One. And then we have this surprise final scene at the end where we're back on Mineral. We see B2 and his friends. And then they just hammer the emotional realities, the emotional devastation after that, as we see Bix has a child that is around 1 year old. And that's like the final heartbreak for me, where I just completely broke down, because now we're gonna have this new dimension to Rogue One's ending, which is once again what great prequels do. But now we're also gonna know Cassian had a baby that he never knew he had, and it's just this tragedy that Tony Gilroy, excellently added to this story. So yeah, that's my review for the final 3 episodes of Andor. This truly was a roller coaster. This was a very more, not necessarily quiet, but it was a more relaxed arc compared to what we had before. And maybe I would have liked a little bit more and a little bit more sauce to the overall plot than just them relaying the Death Star information and spending the majority of the final episode on Yavin. But I'm still very happy with the ending, and they still got to really focus on the characters a lot, so I'm just fine with that. I just, it would have been nice if we had a little bit more, but that was also because I had such high expectations, and these final 3 episodes did more than enough to, clear the line of being great finales to both the show and to Rogue One, and especially that ending montage was, once again, really beautiful. And yeah, please turn notifications on, subscribe. This channel is small, so every subscription truly means a lot, and yeah. For future content, I am going to cover Rogue One soon, and I might also do a ranking of all 24 episodes of Andor. That's probably an extensive episode that's going to come out sometime next week. I'm going to also do an in-depth Superman trailer breakdown and some Mission Impossible episodes where I'm probably going to rewatch like movie 1, maybe Fallout and Dead Reckoning 1. There's not that much time before it comes out and I watch it yet. But I will also do a ranking of that. I just want to do a couple reviews of individual movies. But yeah, that'll also be happening. So yeah, please tune in. Thank you for watching this review. And yeah, I'll see you next time.